Hello everybody, my name is Eric Termals, and today we're going to be checking out Animester's Thunderbolt Squad's Vodka Mirror. She's a 1/9 figure and posable articulated action figure collectible. I actually have an unboxing of this figure. If you'd like to see that, be sure to check it out in the link in the description below. And before I get in on this review, just a couple of things to mention. I don't usually review articulated figures on this channel, mostly because the whole thing with the articulation and all of that is not something I'm genuinely into. This coming from somebody that has hundreds and hundreds of articulated figures, but I usually collect things that are robotic, like Transformers and that sort of thing, where most of the articulation looks like it's joints and things that the robot would have anyway. I have a bit of a frustration seeing humanistic figures and then the lines for all of their bodies being so obviously sectioned off. However, I am aware that with this you can make all sorts of really cool epic poses and you can put your figures the way you want to have them. Then again, I know some of you just like to have an entire series of said characters that you can recreate either a film or TV show, and it's a lot more accessible to get an articulated action figure over a static statue, and static statues are extremely pricey for the most part. I'm definitely aware that there are some extremely pricey articulated figures as well. It's just to say that having every single Star Wars character on one shelf is kind of epic. It's just not for me. So I'm going to be reviewing this figure the same way that I review anime statues, using a microscope for every little part of this figure, and so my biases here aren't necessarily going to be the same thing that you would see with so many other reviewers. With that aside, let's get into reviewing Vodka Mirror. First off, that name is just terrible. I don't think it sounds creative or fun or cool, but this is highly subjective. You may absolutely love it. And her name definitely does not deter from her level of quality. Starting with this base plate, holy moly, this thing is beautiful. It's really raised up and thick, but the cuts and designs that it has give you this really cool repair bay or standing idle area that you could have a mech girl like this stand on. The plastic is a smoky clear plastic. It has all this beautiful design work and cuts here and there, helping accentuate that cyberpunk futuristic robot vibe, where we have 3 compartments that pull out and 2 that actually open up on hinges from the top. It's weird that it's from the top and not the bottom. I feel like it would have been easier to open this thing downward, slide what you want, and then clip it. They did it in reverse. I guess maybe they didn't put a strong enough clip and it kept opening up. Honestly, I don't know. It's kind of a weird choice, but that definitely doesn't hinder this figure too much. She comes with a plethora of accessories and you can fit all of them in this base. Gosh, it's just so freaking awesome. And because this is a smoky clear base, you don't really see them that much. One thing I would have liked to see is perhaps this middle area here be a little more transparent, where we could have the option to put a light under her, because this figure is screaming to have light glowing from underneath her. That would just be wow. We get a little design here. I guess that's the Thunderbolt Squad design or the Vodka Mirror logo. I don't know. It's like a bunny head. It's a cute robotic military thing, and for some reason it just makes me think of Azurlane or Nike. You then plug in this arm, and the arm as well has all sorts of cutouts and designs into it that really feel industrial and as if she was in a repair bay or something similar to that. Great articulation on this thing. Mine wasn't exactly factory solid, so I actually screwed the metallic screws in just a little bit more. However, be very careful doing this because it's metal on plastic. You don't want to screw it too tightly and crack this arm. She has 2 options for the tip of this to be able to hold on to Vodka Mirror, where one is a peg and the other one is the claw. Personally, I've never been a fan of the claw. I just hate it because I want to see this figure, and seeing that claw really takes away from my immersion of looking at it as a whole, just having it holding on to her, and no, I've never been a fan of this. Of course, sometimes you don't have a choice depending on the figures you get. She has 2 separate pegs that she can plug this into, one on her lower back and the other one on her upper back. Her lower back has a little metallic piece that is actually removable so that you can peg this in there, or you can peg in her little flight system, jetpack, waist, epic gun, robot doohickey. Now let's talk a little bit about her accessories before we get into her. She comes with basically your standard stuff that a lot of figures that you'll get come with. I would say middle to high-end articulated figures, like your SH Figure Arts and your Figmas, even Nendoroids. She has all sorts of different hands. They look fantastic from the top, beautiful from the bottom. We actually get some stretches and folds in the fabric for the inside of her hands, which is, again, something that a lot of figure companies are not going to do because they know that you're just going to put a gun in most of these, or a weapon, or a sword, or I don't know, a staff. And in this case, they put in that work. It's beautiful. The robotic white paintwork we get on the top looks absolutely beautiful. Comes with 3 additional facial expressions where we kind of get like a sad one, and then one that looks like she might be a little bit disgusted or unsure of herself, and then another super hardcore epic one that has a mask and then a flame coming out of one of her eyes. Don't try and remove this flame. After really forcing, I've realized it's glued in there pretty well. If I remove that eyepiece, it's gonna break, and I'm kind of sad about this. I would have liked to have the option. Almost everything here comes apart into little pieces. Why didn't they make the flame just like peg in and out? I want just the mask. The mask is cool. I'm just not particularly a personal fan of the eye flame thing, but it is exceptionally well done. Beautiful clear plastic here. You also get a mini Phillips head screwdriver, and this is because her eyes are articulated. Every single one of these faces, you can move the eyes around. You just gotta use that screwdriver. I would suggest going a little slow, but putting in a bit of pressure for the first time that you're going to be moving them. I found mine to be relatively stuck in place, and I didn't want to break anything, so, you know, just be careful. Once you get them moving, then you've got no issues from then on out. They also give you 2 hair pieces that look almost identical to the naked eye, but one of them is ever so slightly more detailed. I don't know why they would do this. That's super strange. They should have done something totally different with the fact that she can actually move her twin tails around. Maybe they could have had one that's flowing forward or flowing backwards, depending on the kind of pose that you want to give her, but just extra detail? Okay. And I can only guess that it's so that everything plugs in a little better with her mask face and the fire eye, but it's just, I don't know, it just seems kind of like a wasted slot, and I would have done something totally different. Getting into the figure, starting off with her shoes. They are lovely. All sorts of beautiful design work here. Anime, robot, future, cyberpunk, all of that, and it's all gorgeous. The paintwork that we have here is extremely well done, but a lot of it's sectioned off plastics. So it's not necessarily like they have a mold and they're putting tons of paint on different little miniature areas of the same mold. It's separate molds that they're then clicking all together. The back of her shoes can house her guns, much like Bayonetta. And what's really epic is that we actually get some tread underneath her shoes. They didn't need to do that. Most anime statue figures don't even do that, but this figure just is really something. Something special. The little mini gun accessories that she has in the back of her feet also can plug into the back of her jetpack, waist pack, somewhat flight accessories. And she has 4 of these guns, so don't worry about thinking, oh, do I want them in the boots or in the backpack? You get all 4. It's really great. These little guns look terrific. Paintwork on them is okay. I'd say it's not super expertly done all around, but it is very well done regardless. You don't get any kind of shading or highlights on these things, and that's okay because it goes well with the rest of the figure. We get a nice, clear, transparent green plastic along the center, and this is nice to really give off that glowy robotic effect, where we also have a few callbacks of this glowing green in other parts of her. Her shins and calves are so beautiful. A lot of different section off plastics here for different colorization, but we also have some nice paint applications put as beautiful accents to make certain parts of her pop that you want to pop. Everything about the design work here is absolutely fabulous. There are a few areas I think I would have liked a couple more faux panel lining or just a deeper, stronger sculpt so that they stick out a little more. And you can see some of the mold lines from its creation along the inside of the leg. It's not extremely noticeable, not even from up close, unless you're really looking for that sort of thing. These knees are terrific. It has this gorgeous wheel that has textures to it, and the fact that these knees are double jointed and we have extra detail in the back part of the knee too. All these rivets and cranks look like they just spin so beautifully. It means that no matter what kind of pose you put these legs in, you're not gonna feel like it's the figure's plastic cracking where the knee is at. It's literally like she's made this way. If this was a real robot girl, her knees would look like that, and that's really beautiful. Going up into the robot thigh-high pieces, I love these chunks that we have on top of the knee. It almost feels like she has some sort of propulsion with it, where it could shoot her back to make her do backflips, stronger kicks. I find it really gives off a lot of personality, wonder, and quite a bit of imagination for those looking at it. And it's such a small, minute detail, the sort of thing that a lot of people won't even notice. But the second you tell it to them, then they're like, huh, cha, that is cool. Around her thigh, the inside, it's just a matte black, matte gray, well sculpted. And on the outside, we have gorgeous robotic circular designs. Almost seems like an epic exhaust with some awesome company robot logo over the black. And I kind of saved the front part for last because it's just wow. I've been wowing a lot on this figure, but she deserves it. The fact that we have a lovely metallic silver where they then coat over it this transparent blue it's just extremely well executed. And then to have some decals of company logos or robotic design work going on top of it creates such a beautiful layering effect. And the fact that the silver part underneath the blue has so much texture and design work going into it as well really adds to the personality and creativity of this figure. It's just extremely nice. And now we're going to get into the figure that could be somewhat controversial for some of you out there. Some of us think it's the future and it's the greatest ever, and this is really personal preference, I would say. As I had mentioned earlier, I'm just not particularly a fan of seeing sectioned off parts of skin. I don't mind when it's on the arms, the elbows, the fingers, any of that when it's a robot, because it feels like it's part of the robot, all of those articulated joints. But I spent many hours building this Megami Device character over here, painting her, putting her together, polishing it up the best I possibly can, putting on those decals, hours. And when I look at her, I absolutely love the design, and from a distance, she looks gorgeous. Just seeing certain lines and articulated parts on the skin really bugs me. And because I'm like this, I got this figure knowing that she would have the least amount of that possible. But it still doesn't come anywhere close to how seamless this figure is. And seamless really is the key word here. Genuinely, these bodies are made out of types of silicone. However, in this figure's description, they describe it as a soft PVC rubber. And having figures made with this type of product makes them very gorgeous, but they're definitely not without their faults, and one of which, I guess it's the main big one, is their upkeep. You have to take tremendously good care of this silicone. It is not necessarily the easiest thing to work with. The figures genuinely have a metallic frame inside with all of their joints, so you have to be careful moving things around, and because you can't see the joint, you never know if you're going to strain it, pop it out, and if it pops out, it is a nightmare to try and get it back in. Not to mention that if you overreach with a dynamic pose, you could slowly stretch out or even tear the silicone, which is awful. There's no fixing that. I guess that might be why, interestingly enough, the instruction manuals offer you an entire parts list. My gosh, those instruction manuals. They are wild. Originally, I thought it was just a list of parts that the figure comes with so you can double check to make sure everything's there, much like Lego, but it isn't. It's an orders list, so if there's something missing, damaged, or that breaks over time, you can actually reorder the part that you're having trouble with. And one of those is her silicone body. It's the most expensive part, but I'm not surprised about this. When it comes to the silicone potentially tearing or being damaged, you usually avoid that by having a thicker amount of it around that metallic frame inside, which is unfortunately something that Vodka Mirror here is lacking around her shoulders and biceps. Her thighs, however, are extra thick. Yeah, they are though. And it's a good thing, because if you want to put her in all these dynamic poses with her legs, at least you don't have to be too worried about this one breaking or tearing on you. Her thighs are gorgeous. They pop out of her thigh highs very nicely. The mold in which they were created from is fantastic. Everything looks beautiful from the inside. We have excellent bevels and curvatures to her body. Unfortunately, from the outside of her body, you can see an extremely thin line of the plastic mold from this soft rubber PVC's creation, but it's really not too bad. And from a shelf, not so noticeable. Everything feels so squishy and soft. And she has fabulous articulation, though personally I would have liked it if her knee could have risen a bit higher. I'm a little afraid to push it too much. I don't want to pop it out of its socket. But with the level of articulation that she does have, you are able to do some pretty epic stuff with it. Her behind is extremely well sculpted, molded, where it looks like she could so easily come from the game Nike, Goddess of Victory. Heck, you could even put her in some of those poses. Bang, 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 bang. Her little black dark bathing suit area here is terrific. Not really any color. I personally would have liked to see some of this mustard yellow or gold highlights on it, but the simplistic black is okay, I guess. This is where she has her first peg hole, and this thing can either be covered with this little silver piece, or you could just straight up put her whole mecha armor flight pack there. As we follow this bathing suit all the way to the front, I love the design work, and again, I think it would have benefited heavily from just a few paint applications. Despite my saying this, you don't really get to see her underpants from the back that often, or from the front due to this lovely little transparent, clear, rubbery plastic shirt front thing. It just looks like a small towel of sorts. But this thing is extremely well sculpted and molded. I love that we have the transparent plastic, some beautiful bolter gun silver going around, a lovely fake robotic company logo in the front on her stomach, and the actual transparent plastic piece in the middle is molded in the same fashion that her stomach is, with the same curves. You even have that little bit of a belly button curve inwards in the center. Very nice. Moving it out of the way, you can see her stomach is very well molded as well. Adorable belly button, thin waist. As we slowly spin her around, you can see that she has a beautiful defining line for her spine, and this well-indented line looks nice going up into the back strap of her bathing suit bra robotic piece here. We can see her shoulder blades, which are very well defined for something that's a soft, malleable PVC rubber. As it goes into her delicate shoulders, and you can actually see a slight variation in color of her soft PVC rubber, because at this point the silicone area is extremely thin. You have to be very careful. I put her in a couple of poses to be able to take photos and show you all, and just in doing that, there's little parts next to her armpit that are starting to stretch out the soft PVC rubber ever so slightly, and that really sucks. So just be careful how dynamic the poses you're going to be putting her in are. Her bathing suit piece looks really nice from the back, but this would have really needed a bit of paint applications here, just like a little bit of gold, or maybe the same kind of pearlized white that you have everywhere else on her. The design and sculpt work here is lovely though, as it goes up into the second peg hole that she has. This one doesn't come with a little silver metallic piece to hide it, but that's okay, because it does look very robotic with that hole injection anyway. Like you could picture them putting a needle in there or something to like plug her into something. What would have been a little extra touch of epic would have been a couple of faux wires coming out the back here and everything, so it really feels like this is all branched into her. That would have been cool. The front of her bra looks terrific. Beautiful matte mixed with metallics, mixed with gloss, and some lovely blue transparency callbacks from her legs up here at the top. It's a gorgeous looking bathing suit. I love all the gold that we have and how everything circles around to really give you that eye focal point of her chest. It's very well thought out in design and very expertly done in practice. Her chest looks very realistic. It's made out of a soft PVC rubber. So looking at it from a distance, it's very similar to what you'd find in a really well-made anime statue. And from up close, you can tell that they put a lot of attention to detail when they sculpted and then molded it afterwards. These beautiful gold pieces that could have just been flat but have carved in detail into them go into her neck piece. The whole front part of her neck here looks like she comes straight out of Xenoblade. That could easily be a blade's core. Despite her shoulders seemingly having slightly thinner, soft PVC rubber than I would like, it still bevels nicely as it goes into the bicep robotic arm pieces. The first kind of annoyance you're going to have here is, as cool as a looking concept, this boomerang thing is articulated and can move around, and let me tell you, this thing is just freaking annoying. It's annoying because it gets in the way all the time when I'm trying to put her into different poses. It's hard to close it up so that it lines up perfectly, and then you move her around a bit, and then it always either gets too squished together and they overlap, or it's moved up in the wrong area. When you try to fix that, then everything else falls apart. But I guess that's the lifestyle you live when you collect any kind of articulated figure that's extremely detailed. We got some epic robotic writing and beautiful clear transparent blue plastic at the tips to go with the rest of the beautiful transparent clear plastic all over this figure. The elbow joint is freaking awesome. I can't even. This elbow. Along the inside, we have all sorts of cool looking interconnected circular pieces for the double jointedness, but it does a great job at feeling robotic, where on the elbow itself, it's just this thick chunk that looks pretty, and when her arm is fully extended, everything connects so seamlessly and beautifully, and then when it's bent, the way it comes out, it's so robotically well done. Her forearms are very well sculpted with a lovely mix of textures here, and an awesome repeat of what we see on her thigh highs, with a silver painted textured piece, and then putting the transparent blue on top, and then a lovely little decal on top of that, just layering that texture. It's so lovely. And here's where I'm gonna mention this. Her textures are flawless. The fact that we have the soft PVC rubber skin, and then it goes into all of these semi-gloss, high gloss, reflective, metallics, transparent clear blues, matte colors, and this could so easily have been far too busy for the eye, but it's just so well executed that it just makes your eye interested at looking at every facet that she has on her. She comes with this accessory jetpack piece that can either be plugged at the top or lower peg. It looks gorgeous on her in either way. Like, it's just personal preference, and I like both of them so much that I don't know what I'm gonna do. For now, I have her like this, but I mean, Next week, I might swap it up. There's these two smaller ovular pieces on the outside that go in with a ball joint. You can actually swap out the ball joint piece here and put in a handle so that it turns into a gun for her. And this thing opens up to become larger, to give you that awesome feeling that when it's on the jetpack piece, it's all closed up, and then when she pulls it out, it just opens like... It's so cool. And the larger pieces do the exact same thing. It's like fun little Transformer-style transformations just to make that thing seem more compact and aerodynamic, and then everything just opens up to give her that overboost drive or clock that she needs in order to defeat her enemies. And they did not skimp out on the details for these things. They are everywhere. They look beautiful. I love all the little robotic decals that we get on this. It really helps at making this feel corporate, and I personally like things like that. My one thing I would mention is that she has transparent, albeit cold, green plastic pieces at the top, or the bottom, depending on how you position this. She comes with alternate bunny ears that have that little transparent green if you want to have that callback. Personally, I think I would have just made it in transparent blue so that we have more cohesion throughout the whole figure. But this is just a nitpick, and due to the fact that it's a cold green, it still matches up very nicely with it. These things are plugged into these arms that go into a little backpack, and the arms are extremely articulated. Now, I've had issue where while I'm trying to pose it around, they pop off the pegs quite often, but it does go into the peg quite well at the same time. Like most articulated figures, you gotta just take your time when you want to put them in that perfect pose. And this has wiring in it. They were clever in their way of putting different types of solid painted pieces into one another, because I think that this would have benefited from slightly more paint applications. But the way that they separated the plastic helps at making it look pretty good and not necessarily needing that. The main backpack in the center looks terrific, though on the lighter gray parts on the sides, you can tell that there's a sort of exhaust design. I think I would have put a dark metallic silver here. And along the back side of this backpack, she can house her two epic pistols. They go in there okay. I wouldn't say that they're super solid, but you know, once you put her in that pose that you really love, you usually just leave your figures like that for quite a while, right? Don't expect them to just fall out on your shelf. Just while handling her, they pop out every now and then. Her neck is small, pretty simple, plugs into the back of her head pretty well. I'd say that this is that one part that kind of feels less robotic, and it has that sectioning off of the different plastics that I tend to not like in articulated figures. And I know some of you out there are saying, yeah, but you know, what else would they have done? They could have made her whole neck piece go up and become robotic up to underneath her chin. You know, this could have been all metal down here, and this could have been a cool design, and then the whole thing could have moved around. I personally would have done that. But this is by no means a deal breaker. It's still pretty nice. As I had shown you earlier, her face is removable with multiple different types of faces. I personally love just the standard stoic one. Her ears are attached to this main faceplate. It's small. They're okay sculpted. I think the ears should have been maybe a little bit bigger. And when you plug it in with the hair, you can see that there's no hair around the ear near the top. I don't love that, but it's not that noticeable from a shelf. It's just that I see it, so it's just kind of like a personal taste annoying thing. Her face is really soft, well-rounded, but still sharp. I really love it. Despite usually loving my super round faces the most, this is such a cute face. I'd say that her face does match up relatively well with the lighter color that you get from the thinner, soft PVC rubber of her shoulders. However, it doesn't necessarily match up with how warm the coloration of the rest of the skin on her body is. We get some nice shadowy shading underneath her eyes. It looks terrific, and it does an excellent job at selling us on the murderous feel and intent of this character. Little red line for the mouth. This red is fairly pronounced. I think it's good that they did this because her being a 1/9 and looking at her from a shelf, you can see it very well. The decals for the eyelashes and eyebrows are terrific. I especially love that they put some line work for the eyebrows so that they pop much more. Feels very much like an illustration. While the eyeballs themselves, which are articulated, have a gorgeous high gloss to them, which makes the whole thing really scream synthetic robot. It was done very well on this figure. I currently am showing you the second hair piece that she came with along the front, which is the more detailed one. I just personally like it more. The carving in the hair is very nice. We get a little bit of shading, no highlights, but it still looks really good and it matches up with the rest of the figure well. The back of the hair is extremely well sculpted. All sorts of really deep cuts and pulls in the sculpt work here going up into her two twin tails, with some lovely shading to really give you some depth to her hair. Personally, I think I would have made the articulated pieces for her twin tails here look a different color. They could have made it a nice reflective silver with a transparent clear blue around it, circular balls that we could have had here. It would have looked gorgeous, and it would have felt less cheap. They didn't have to use a relatively same type of grayish white here. I mean, she's supposed to have scrunchies or attachments or elastics, something to make these twin tails. So this was a perfect opportunity to use a different color that would have really meshed well with the rest of the figure. The twin tails themselves have multiple different strands of molds of plastic being put into one another, but because everything is so very well sculpted at an extremely deep level, it's noticeable, but it definitely works. And finally, we come up to her cute bunny ears. Lovely bandana. Down near the ears, we have a little transparent green. So that's the callback of the green that we get on her little jetpack pieces. Dark bolter gun gray going all along the top with lovely design work into these little yellow articulated circles that then plug into her amazingly cute robot bunny ears. So incorporating animal features into a robot girl is always the absolute best for me. For those of you that have been following me on my channel for a little while, you probably all know this. The bunny ears have that lovely silver with a transparent blue plastic going over the top, and I love the amount of detail that we get inside these things. All the little robotic carvings are gorgeous. And the fact that we have some more decal writing too underneath them is just really nice. The yellow inside and the darker metallic black that we get on the outside of these bunny ears is terrific, with more little decals written on the outside of the ears. They are very well done. Upon her release, she was going for 15,400 yen. 100% worth it. I can't stress that enough. Now, I know I'm a little bit biased. I've kind of been gushing throughout a lot of this video about how impressed I am with this figure, but I'm not really an articulated figure person, despite having so many articulated figures in my collection. But they're ever so rarely human, and unless they have really cool, epic retro packaging that really takes me back to when I was a kid, I just don't care because I'm not going to take this thing out of here anyway. I didn't buy it as a collectible to keep in the box. I bought it because I love the box. And the figure inside looks pretty cool. So when I get a figure like this, usually I try to get something like a Paulinian over here, where this is a 100% robot design. It looks like this in the artwork because it's an original creation, and I think it looks gorgeous. Snail shell over here, I try to imagine that all the little pieces that we see, they're robotic pieces. She's a bug, she's an insect. This is all just exoskeleton chunks going into other chunks. So I don't mind this so much. But if all of her humanistic parts here had all the little joints and appendages where you see all the line work like you would normally with a bunch of pieces of plastic being pushed into one another with different types of pegs, I definitely wouldn't be into this as much. And for real, I put this figure in so many different poses, and she always just looks so striking. She's incredibly photogenic, and it just has such statuesque qualities to her. And the base is not a detriment whatsoever to me because of how well designed the base is and how well it works with her whole aesthetic. If she was 2 to 3 times larger, I could probably pose her next to my Astra Archer statue here by Kotobukiya, and you wouldn't be able to tell that this is actually an articulated figure. And that is the dream. I just want more figures like this. Animester worked with a company called Nuclear Gold Reconstruction on designing and making, or I guess just really producing the figure for them, and they have a couple other models. I'm not particularly fond of the designs to them, however, I would never knock their quality, and the whole design thing is all personal preference. So I'm definitely going to keep my eye out for more figures like this in the future. She's so exceptionally well done that she's worth every single of those dollars that you're going to pay for her, and I have paid a lot for different types of figures, like this 90s animated Rogue by Mondo Toys. What a massive disappointment, and she was 2 times more expensive than this thing. I actually can't compare Rogue to Vodka. Vodka is leaps and bounds, much better articulation, much better paint work, much better sculpt work. And I can say that a lot of articulated figures end up with this sort of thing, especially when you're comparing something from the East against something from the West. So hopefully my review today helped you decide which side of the fence you are on getting this figure. I didn't take any photos or make any kind of videos on showing off all the different points of articulation she has to offer. However, this awesome Chinese YouTube page that reviews figures has made an amazing video that can show you all of the points of articulation that Vodka Mirror has to offer. Their name is Lubian de Dashu, so if you would like to see all of the points of articulation, be sure to check the link in the description below. It is an excellent video. And if you like my video just a little bit,
if you like me, click that like. If you like Eric, click that subscribe. Shoot the notification bell for notifications.
Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye! So I was like setting up all of my figures here to kind of talk about the points of articulation and how it's noticeable with some figures, but I'm more cool about it because either it's a full-on robot, which is fantastic, or it's armor, or it's a bio armor thing, and it just looks really good. When all of a sudden, and I'm glad I got that on camera because oh my, and she fell right in my trash. I really like this She-Ra. She's absolutely gorgeous, but I definitely have a bone to pick with Mondo Toys. They make these figures that are so heavy and so big. It's 1-on-6, but they give you the ugliest base with these tiny little things that hold on to her, the little clamps I was talking about earlier. But for these figures, the clamps stain and ruin the body because of the cheap rubber they use. This She-Ra was so expensive. I shouldn't be having those kind of issues. Regardless, I still really like this She-Ra, and the design that they did for her costume is really amazing. The whole time, I was so certain that Rogue here was going to fall over because she is so incredibly unstable on this base that it's like, why even make the base if you like it can't hold the character? It looks so good. Why? But at the same time that I say it looks so good, I have my complaints. Look at this knee joint. That yellow's not even the same yellow that you see here and here. Like, this is articulated figure problems that I have. It's a personal thing. I have to work through this on my own. But thanks to companies like Animester over here, I may not have to work through these problems for much longer. Because between now and the next 10 years, I'm very, very hyped at seeing what they release. Because this is really, really something special. So special.